Vanakkam Doha Deva and everyone. Wonderful to be with you. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadi Tamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we will share the screen. And we have August 21. Here we are. Close this one. See what we have in store. Our first topic. We have a new question. Okay, that slide shouldn't be there. What is the Saivasadanta view on training in martial arts? My friend is trying to convince me that Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is about self-defense and how to maturely handle conflict. I am under the assumption that it still has inherent violent undertones, and while perhaps being a positive physical and mental training would be a form of Ahimsa, and to be avoided for one wanting to pursue the deeper spiritual paths. There we go. In the Bodhinatha Sutras, Gurudev explains 3 regrettable exceptions to Ahimsa. What are they? That is your question. Three regrettable exceptions to Ahimsa in the Bodhinatha Sutras. Shiva's devotees, one unable to observe Ahimsa perfectly, may claim 3 exceptions to preserve one life over another. But these must be used sparingly, reluctantly, after the non-injurious options have been tried. Self-defense and law enforcement. Shiva's devotees, faced with imminent danger, may elect to injure or kill to protect their life or that of another, or to defend the community as a soldier or a law officer in the line of duty. This is Ahimsa's first exception. Preserving life and health. Shiva's devotees may elect to preserve the life and health of a person or animal under their care by forfeiting the life of organisms, such as worms or microbes that pose a threat. This is the second exception to Ahimsa. Predators and pests. Shiva's devotees may elect to protect the home, the village, and the nation by eradicating predators, pests, bacteria, and disease-carrying creatures that threaten health or safety. This is Ahimsa's third and last exception. Non-injurious solutions. Shiva's devotees uphold the principle not to kill even household pests, but to stop their entry, not to kill garden insects or predators, but keep them away by natural means. This is the highest ideal. Om Namah Shivaya. So those are the 5 verses in that chapter in the Bodhinatha Sutras. Then I thought we could look at path to Shiva. Why do we practice Ahimsa? As a few additional ideas. Our basic beliefs as Saivite Hindus naturally inspire us to practice Ahimsa, or non-injury. Because we see God everywhere, we feel a deep closeness and affection for all beings. We would never want to hurt that which we love and revere. Knowing that God is in every person, every creature, everything bestows an attitude of sublime tolerance and acceptance. We reject the idea that some people are evil and deserve to be treated badly. People do act in evil ways, but deep inside they are all divine beings. They are experiencing a difficult part of their evolutionary path. The second belief, Ahimsa, is the law of karma. The second belief behind Ahimsa is the law of karma. We know that any hurt we cause others will one day return to us. Being aware of this basic principle, we wholeheartedly practice Ahimsa, refraining not only from causing physical harm or violence, but also hurting others with our words and our thoughts. So that's a very strong point in Gurudeva's teachings. It's thought, word, and deed. That we're mind, speech, and body, that we're harnessing, not just the body. Such gentleness gives rise to respect, courtesy, and appreciation for others. Non-injury is a product of spiritual consciousness. Hurtfulness arises from lower instinctive consciousness, fear, anger, greed, jealousy, and hate. It is based in the mentality of separateness, of good and bad, mine and yours. We never retaliate. It is wiser to accept the hurt as self-created karma and respond with understanding and forgiveness. To retaliate would only perpetuate that karma. However, Ahimsa does not mean pacifism. Some people think that. I remember talking to a few people in the U.S. that they thought Hindus were pacifists, meaning don't believe in war at all, shouldn't even have an army. But Hinduism does not have a belief in pacifism. We may defend ourselves to protect our life or the life of another, or turn to the police who are authorized to use force. And we support our country's use of military force to safeguard its citizens. As I jokingly say, we'd all be speaking Japanese in Hawaii if the U.S. didn't have a military. Ahimsa is also a powerful tool for changing and improving society and government. Gandhi proved this with his civil disobedience movement, which freed India without resorting to fights or force. Here he is. Ahimsa is called the Mahavrata, the great vow. Among all the yamas and niyamas, it is the most important virtue. And that's why it's first. If you're not doing that, the others won't happen either. So now the actual answer I gave to the question, because I sent the answer to the person via email. Though Ahimsa is the ideal, Gurudeva did list some regrettable exceptions. One is self-defense. Then I quoted the sutra on self-defense, which I won't repeat here. But basically, we can defend ourselves and others. In other words, protecting your own life is a higher principle than Ahimsa. If the study of Jiu Jitsu is something you would actually use to protect your life, if it was ever threatened, then it would be appropriate to study it. So it needs to be something you'd actually use. Otherwise, as the question was initially saying, it just stimulates this sense of violence for no purpose. But everyone needs an ability to protect himself or herself and family members according to the environment they're in. Different environments require different levels of protection, different types of protection. So if this would actually work, Jiu Jitsu, in the environment this person is in then, and he was going to use that, then it would be okay to study it. But otherwise, I'd skip it. Next question. What is meant by conscious and subconscious concentration, which Gurudeva mentions emerging with Shiva? How are they different? Interesting question. Concentrating the conscious mind involves controlling our thinking about various topics. Thinking. Generally, we have a few ongoing topics that we are prone to think about in an effort to find various answers. That's normal. Thinking about, if we're a student, we're thinking about a test at school. If we're an employee, we're thinking about certain things. If we're an employer, we're planning ahead. The intellect is always thinking about various topics. So that is the conscious mind. We need to quiet this process down through pranayama, controlled breathing. Concentrating the subconscious mind involves controlling what we are currently remembering. For example, a movie we saw yesterday that we liked. We can tell the subconscious there is no need to remember this right now, be quiet. It's not a really serious train of thought. So it's easy to quiet it down. It's just the mind likes to replay what happened yesterday if it enjoyed it. So good movie, start thinking about it the next day. But it's just a series of pictures about what you saw the previous day. Totally different than thinking about a topic. So we need to do them both. Can you elaborate on the idea of religious life being a type of restriction? This came up in conversation recently. Reminded me of Gurudeva's box of Dharma. In Living with Shiva, Lesson 272, Gurudeva offers some important insights into closing off the lower chakras. Ahimsa, non-hurtfulness, is the essence of Dharma, and the Muladhara Chakra sets the pattern of Dharma. The Muladhara Chakra is a very interesting chakra because it is the base center of energy and consciousness is energy, ever creating, preserving, and absorbing. Karma is the self-perpetuating principle of cause and effect, shaping our experiences as a result of how we use our energies, mentally, verbally, or physically. So, once we narrow down the individual awareness from freedom without responsibility, which is the lower nature, into the consciousness of freedom with responsibility, which is the higher nature, the individual awareness or consciousness must pass through the portals of the Muladhara Chakra and rest comfortably within the energy of its four petals. Four petals, of course, form a square. Three-dimensionally, two squares put together with a space between can well be defined as a box. This box is defined as Dharma. Briefly, at this point on the path to enlightenment, we put our cumulative karmas into a box called Dharma. Once encased within Dharma, the various karmas may fight each other. As the individual progresses on the path, the box lightens and rises. The box of Dharma is the base from which the aspirant must live at this point. So that is a really powerful and major concept. We need to put ourselves into the box of Dharma. What does that mean? It means we need to identify and fulfill the duties that we are supposed to be doing. For example, most adults are married. They have the duty of a parent, the duty of a spouse, the duty of an employee or employer. All those are different sets of duties that they're striving to fulfill. Duty to the general community around them as well, to their temples. So those are duties that they're striving to fulfill as best they can. And then the karma comes to them in that context. So it's regulated. The karma is just not coming haphazard. It's not coming in an overwhelming way. It's regulated by the fact that the individual is fulfilling the duties of his or her dharma. And there are individuals, such as in prisons, for example, who have not yet figured that out. So they're still stealing to make money, things like that. They're not in the box of dharma, and therefore their karma can come in very disruptive ways. So what they need to learn is to come up in consciousness and realize they need to fulfill the duties of a dharma, that's the way to move forward in life. Put yourself in the box of dharma. Strictly contained, he may rise through the hole in the top of the box in consciousness, or open a hole in the bottom of the box and seek freedom without responsibility in the world of darkness. To seek freedom in the chakras above is the Sanmarga. To seal off the hole at the bottom of the box is his sadhana, penitent, tapas, japa, bhakti, and Shiva thondu, all of which is eloquently explained in Merging with Shiva. Who holds the lid on the box? Community. Community pressures, both religious and secular. There are certain things you can do and certain things you can't do. End of Gurudeva's quote. So back to the box of Dharma, my comments. As we mentioned at the beginning of the pub desk, climbing the ladder of consciousness, something we did a number of months ago. The core teaching of all the major religions is to provide guidance to human beings so that in pursuing their natural ambitions to achieve wealth and love, they do so in a manner that adheres to virtuous and dutiful living. In other words, all religions provide a means to live within the box of Dharma. That's the ideal, not unique to Hinduism. Good conduct is something that all religions have. It's the one thing that they all have. Only some of them have devotion, even fewer have meditation. But they all have good conduct, because that's the starting point, coming up into duty. So we have some interesting words in Shum, for those of you who are Shum aficionados. Adding more Shum, it's fun to stick this in. Si-imf, restriction causing a sense of being burdened. So restriction can make you feel burdened or not make you feel burdened. You're just used to it. It's like a busy schedule. You have to get up in the morning, do this, this, and this, then you go to work, then you do this, then you do that. When you first take it on, it can feel restrictive. Can feel like it's a burden, but after you get used to it, it's natural. There's no sense of restriction at all. So this is something in the initial stage of restriction. Like if someone were to live in an ashram for 3 months, they might have trouble the first week or two. Too restrictive. But hopefully they'd adjust and learn to enjoy the restriction. And the other word, nyafsam, restriction with no feeling of being burdened, a feeling of freedom within this confined area. The restrictions feel natural to us, can acquire making new habits, take time to achieve. Right, that needs some grammar there. The idea is, once you take on a restriction, you don't automatically lose the sense of being burdened in 1 day or 1 week or even 1 month. It can take a while to form some new habits, to get used to the restriction, and once you do, then it doesn't feel like restriction at all. So that is area restriction in religion. And then we have second topic, hospitality, which is the 30th character quality from our character building workbook. How would you define hospitality? That's a pretty easy one. The workbook gives this definition. Hospitality means being friendly and considerate toward guests, cheerfully meeting their needs, and sharing conversation, food, and shelter. I practice it when I treat visitors with welcoming affection and generosity. The opposite is inhospitality. So some cultures are much more oriented toward hospitality than others. It's not a criticism of a culture if it's not so oriented, but Hinduism is definitely oriented in that way, that people are visiting your home and you try and offer them as much as you can, including staying for a meal, even staying in the home instead of a hotel. You know, it's just, that's the culture to do that. I practice it when I treat visitors with welcoming affection and generosity. The opposite is inhospitality. Then we get some great quotes from Gurudeva. Hospitality flows from Shiva's followers like sweet music from a veena. Guests are treated as God, friends, relatives, acquaintances, even strangers are humbled by the overwhelming, ever-willing attention received. Hospitality is a vital part of fulfilling dana. When guests come, they must be given hospitality, at least a mat to sit on and a glass of water to drink. These are obligatory gifts. You must never leave your guests standing, and you must never leave your guests thirsty. So Gurudeva used to say you have to at least give the mat and the glass of water. So mat refers to when people sit on the floor, chairs, if they're sitting in chairs. Comparing the action of one who is hospitable to one who is inhospitable. If guests are in the home near mealtime, you, hospitality, repeatedly encourage them to stay for the meal. Inhospitality, bring the conversation to a halt and hope they leave before dinner. Second situation, when new neighbors move in next door, you, hospitality, go to their home with a gift and welcome them to the community. Inhospitality, keep your distance hoping they don't cause your family any grief. Third situation, when relatives visit your town on business, you, hospitality, call to insist they overnight in your home, not in a local hotel. Inhospitality, keep silent, preferring not to have the extra bother in your life. And reflection, take a moment to identify a few ways in which you could improve in hospitality. One of the ideas here, which we develop in other keynotes, is it's generally thought of as something you do at home. But with people so spread out these days, that's not always practical. So it's something you can do in the office, do at school, in other situations. You don't have to just relate it to being at home. You can bring some food or something to share in any environment. Assignment, during these 2 weeks, watch for opportunities to be hospitable, overcoming any reluctance to give your guests a warm welcome. Give freely of food, shelter, and conversation. Oh, thank you very much. Stop the sharing.